All righty, Rue.
Welcome back to part 3 of this week's YAWA. Ethan is mad at me because he asked for a short question at the end of part 2, which I did not provide because it's me, let's face it. So we are carrying over the last question of part 2 to the first question of part 3. So if you have missed part 2 and part 1, go back, watch them.
Go back and watch them and then come back to this.
Yeah, hit subscribe, hit like, and then follow along as we answer that question. Meow.
So we've got the situation where you're saying, is this going to cause problems if they're not hunting steady to wing, shot, and fall, if that's your end goal in the first season? Is that going to cause problems? And the answer to that is no. Now, the big thing that we have to look at is breaking down bird dogs as a whole. You kind of have, hunting dogs as a whole incorporates all three of these sectors. You have I may be off the screen. You have the really pointing oriented dogs. You have versatile dogs, and then you have flushing, retrieving oriented dogs. From an upland side of things, more flushing and then retrieving is involved in most of the three sequences, but you get progressively better with retrieving, give or take.
Progressively better with retrieving, progressively better with pointing.
Yes.
And having that middle ground is really nice where they do both fairly naturally.
But you shade one side of the line or the other a lot of times because that middle section should be more like a line. This would be a perfect 50-50 split.
Which no dog is perfect.
No dog is perfect. But you have dogs that shade this direction and you have dogs that shade toward the flushing retrieving side of things. So if you look at that back in the day, and this is, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a broad, gross generalization. So please, nobody get hurt by these comments about specific breeds and everything else. But English pointers, bred to be field trial dogs, bred to be bird dogs, bred to be pointers, and
run big,
do their thing. That more traditionally is kind of what they were and have been in the United States anyhow. And those dogs are extremely easy to steady up, extremely easy to keep steady to wing, shot, and fall. And probably if they had one thing that they're going to struggle with is, or was in the day, retrieving. Because a dog that lacks retrieving desire is going to be easier to keep standing and pointing birds.
And a lot of those trials don't even necessarily involve retrieving.
I don't believe Brittany trials do, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't believe that a majority of pointer trials require retrieving, and there are some retrieving stakes in both, but then there are Brittany's and pointers would be the big ones, and then I know there are some other, but I think most of those other cross into, in our area specifically, Oklahoma is a big Brittany area, pointer area, Texas big, more pointer. It's like pointer, Brittany, Shorthair. That's kind of how the progression up from Texas goes. And you are looking at the pointers themselves. They typically point and don't do much retrieving, or they have to be taught how to retrieve and more or less made to retrieve, and then can kind of develop a good enough habit. And then through breeding, some people have said, I really want our pointers to be able to do both. But you're still shading that direction. You have a dog with a lot of pointing instinct that has a little better understanding of retrieving and with a little bit of work does a great job. I've seen that. And some of the lines, Hugh has done a pretty good job moving that direction. Fiddler's Ace would be another big name that's older. All right. Date my pointer knowledge here, but be older, Fiddler Ace dogs, and then some of the more field trial based stuff like Honky Tonk Attitude, which was a pretty big pointer in the field trial world stuff for a while there. It's out of Miller stuff in Missouri, maybe. More toward pointer field trials. So they didn't have to retrieve, or they don't have to retrieve in a majority of them. Anyhow, Brittany's, you can run into some that are the same. Stand all day because they weren't originally put as much emphasis on retrieving, and that has changed in today's day and age. But then you move into some of the versatile breeds. Those are going to be short hairs, big one. And then you have Vizslas, wire hairs, Draughts, and DKs, which are just as much different breeds as the others in there. Technically, the Brittany's are considered versatile breeds, and pointers are considered versatile breeds. They're just not always as good at it or as commonly used in those situations. You have Weimaraners. You have a bunch of obscure, if you will, breeds, which are going to be Spinonis, Bracco Italianos,
Brock Francais.
What are the Portuguese pointers? Are they just Portuguese pointers? They're not.
There's another name. Can't remember.
There's a whole collection of them that fall in this middle round. And you're going to be somewhere shaded toward more pointing instinct, less prey drive and desire, or you're going to be on the opposite end where they've kind of gone a little too far and you have more catch and kill and flush and retrieve tendencies, and you've shaded a little ways away from that let's point stuff, and you end up kind of having to teach a little more in that department. So when you're looking at those, then you get all the way over into flushing dogs, and there even are a few of them that people are developing for pointing, like pointing labs, and some dogs lack a little bit of confidence in their department, which aims more, that hesitation can be developed into a pointing dog and bred on and created better ones. So I'm not hating on pointing labs. It's just a new thing. So it's going to be less consistent as, let's say, buying a pointing dog. But you have that mixture of all of the things going back and forth. So now that all of that is said, I've kind of lost where I was going with it. It was important.
So we're talking about, should you steady your dog up prior to the hunting season?
Thank you.
That is 14 months old and is ready for their first hunting season.
Okay. So now going back into the 3 parts. Thank you, honey. I appreciate it. You have your pointing breed dogs. Those dogs you could take and steady from day one because they have less retrieving desire and it's not as important, and you're probably going to have to kind of teach them anyway how to do it. So it's not going to matter if they're steady from day one or not. You have these middle section, and this is where your trouble comes in. If you have a versatile breed, you have to evaluate this. If they have that pretty good balance of retrieving desire and pointing desire, if you start taking away that retrieving game, and taking away the chase and taking away all of the things that gear more towards the retrieving and flushing and exciting aspect of this spectrum too soon, they're going to start to resent the training, and you're going to run into issues. They may require a fair amount of handling to get them there because this side kicks in, but you need to be careful with that. And our recommendation with the average versatile dog is that they're making it through a season so we can get through some mental maturity. We can get through some ability to understand what's going on out there.
Learning their purpose, especially on wild birds, because it's not a specific controlled setup situation like in training. Yeah. They're learning to use their nose. They're learning not to overpressure birds. They are learning to mark. They're learning to track, because a lot of these birds, pheasants especially, you might hit them and they're wounded and then they hit the ground running. Well, if you've got a dog that you're not allowing to break until you send them to retrieve, they're way off that confusing bird. And then they're trying to put all of these pieces together that they're just learning to put together in their first season, and they won't be as successful. Whereas if you wait to do some of that steadiness training until the spring after your hunting season is over, which is what our ultimate plan is with Legend, who's 13 months old, so very close to the same age as your dog. We've done formal retrieving work. He's had formal woe training. We've done a few basic steadiness drills of having him stand through some thrown pigeons, which is the basics.
All in the yard, not applying that to field work.
Just getting a little bit of an understanding with that, similar to what we started with Hatch's training series on steadiness.
If you haven't seen that series yet, it is complete, showing our method, if you will, of step by step. And every dog that comes through the program is going to go through those same steps. They may take a slightly different approach or require more reps of them, but it's the same steps, essentially.
And then, but then we're going to just let him hunt, let him learn. Like I said, all the things that he needs to learn. And then coming back into the spring, we're going to move right into that steadiness training and get him ready for some tests where he has to stand steady through wing, shot, and fall. So our ultimate recommendation,
yes, would be to wait until after that first season and then put the most emphasis on moving to steady to wing, shot, and fall and maintaining it between the 2nd and 3rd year of life. That seems to be when the versatile dog's mental maturity really comes into its prime. 3-year-olds are a heck of a lot easier, make a heck of a lot less mistakes, and just understand that more advanced thought process better than a puppy.
Yeah, so mental maturity, understanding what they're supposed to be doing, everything's going to happen after that first season.
It's a fantastic question. All right.
Next question from Justin Levine. I have a 10-week-old lab and am working on her intro to retrieving based on your videos. Awesome.
Fantastic.
She loves her puppy bumpers, and I only bring them out when I am going to throw it for her. I have been using a hallway that limits her to only walking back in my direction. She gets super excited and aggressively chases down the bumper. However, once she gets to the bumper, she likes to start chewing it or playing with it rather than retrieving it. How should I correct this? Is this something where I should let her mature a little more or perhaps remove some of her play toys? I don't want to keep throwing her retrieves and establishing a bad habit. So Justin, this is an excellent question, and it's so great because you're taking so much that we have mentioned and shown in our previous videos, and you're utilizing that where only allowing her to use training bumpers, having those bumpers only available during your training sessions, using a controlled environment like a hallway.
So
those are all really great things.
And it's a great question. We're glad you're asking it here. And I want to say that for anybody else that's watching right now that wants to see one of their questions asked, we are pulling all of the questions for these episodes, if you will, from the comments below. So throw your comment, YAWA question, and then type out your question.
So a couple things that I want to mention as ways that you can help work through this is keep your sessions short so she is excited throughout the whole process. Maybe only do 2 or 3 retrieves so that she's not getting tired and laying down to chew on that bumper. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Still on one.
Another option would be and an option that you can combine is to throw a check cord on her, even in the house, so that if she tries to lay down, you can give her a couple little tugs, redirect her, get her attention back to you to get her moving back down the hallway towards you. That would be number 2. Number 3, and this is one that's probably going to be Kat's unpopular opinion, controversial, is your puppy might just be playing with toys too much. And
I think that the average puppy plays with toys too much.
Yes, and
from a bird dog standpoint. Let's go bird dog standpoint, because if you just have a pet and they're chewing and mouthing, rolling, whatever, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
They're just dogs.
If you're trying to develop a dog that's going to be a great hunting dog and retrieving birds and things for you in the future, teaching them and treating them like a bird dog, like a hunting dog, that you have expectations is really important. So having too many toys that your puppy can just play with willy-nilly, lay down and chew on, there isn't a huge difference to them at this point between that and the bumper. And though you're only using that specific bumper for training sessions, it still is similar to a toy. And that's what she gets to do, is lay down and chew on toys and stuff. So our recommendation might be to remove some of the other fun toys that she gets to do those behaviors of laying down and chewing with, and only giving her specific like edible chew bones and treats, because puppies do need to chew. They still need things to occupy them. And I'm not trying to be a, Nazi on we don't play, we're no fun, we're not fun suckers here.
I'm a fun sucker.
Ethan's a fun sucker. I'm not a fun sucker. But we try and maintain, expectations with our toys too, which is why squeaky toys aren't something that we recommend. People ask us all the time, what toys do you let your dogs play with? I'm like,
chew bones.
Chew bones, and
little puppies get toys for a little while.
And this puppy's only 10 weeks old, so there still needs to be some
think about the
toys
think about the toys that right now, Clutch, who is just over 10 weeks old, right around
13, 14 weeks old now.
Okay, so he's into the next month of stuff, but it's anything your dog is conditioning. We say this a lot.
Which is why you said you don't want to create bad habits, so you're trying to find what to do next.
Anything they're doing, they're conditioning themselves too. So you just have to, when you're switching away from toys is what I'm getting, is when you start to see these bad things start to develop, because like Kat said, they're the same. It's a toy. The bumper is a toy, even though you're keeping them separate. The mouth habits are what you're watching develop there.
Yes. So, our adult dogs especially, they don't get any toys to play with. They get chew bones. Every once in a while, they'll steal one of the young puppies' toys, and then they immediately destroy it. So we don't give them toys either.
Yeah, and every once in a while, Grandpa steals one and tries to eat it. So
yeah, and that causes problems as well. So I would say your 3 big things: remove extra toys, use a check cord, and keep those sessions short. So great question. We hope we were able to answer that for you.
Absolutely. All right. We had a ton of really good questions this week.
We did have a ton of really good questions. So this question is awesome. And it's awesome for a couple of reasons. Nate Brugman, 8-month-old female Labrador, trying my best to introduce her to different people for puppy socializing. She gets so excited every time at seeing
8-month-old?
Yes.
Okay.
At seeing a new person or someone she has been around multiple times. Lots of jumping, scratching, and occasionally piddling. I got the DT Wrap 1450, and she does great while walking with commands, but doesn't seem to help around new people. Most people have said she is just in her puppy stage. Thanks in advance. Really like your videos and has helped a lot. So, great question, because this is a question we honestly get asked a lot. How to help your dog
A lot.
behave properly when they are meeting new people. Second reason, this is a really good question, is we are going to be shooting a video about this very soon with Thunder, because he's going on 6 months old and is very much establishing those I jump up, I act like a nut when I meet people.
Yes.
Third reason, this is a great question, is because Ashley Nicole, just somebody else on YouTube, jumped in and answered this question. And sometimes that happens. And I'm like, well, you're kind of right, but I also want to add this to it. Or I'm like, no, don't listen to that person. They're just a keyboard warrior. Or I'm like, man, girl, you're spot on. And she said, this may not be the answer you're looking for, but your puppy doesn't have to have physical contact or greet every person or dog she sees. Even small training sessions to teach him or her to be calm around people, even at further distances, are more beneficial to the puppy. That's still socialization. Teach calmness first. And that, like I said, spot on, really great advice to understand that your 8-month-old dog doesn't have to interact with everybody, because anything a dog is doing consistently, they're conditioning themselves to. So if your dog meets new people and that's their MO of jump up, get all excited and crazy, then that's how they think that they need to interact with everybody that they meet. Whereas if you can keep your distance and maintain those calm behaviors and talk to the person that you're walking up to meet.
The person is the biggest part of the problem. You know, I mean, people in general, and I love you people, but you're the problem. I mean, it's the fact that society believes that anytime they see a dog, there's an open invitation to come pet them, or and the thought process that
not
this
just
is
pet them,
get them all excited and act like a-holes, I mean, but essentially what you do is you set up your puppy to understand that any person they meet that's new, they get to do whatever they want, and they're naughty, and that person's going to get them so excited, and that conditions that behavior and that response. Now, you got to think about the service dog industry, okay? So there are a lot of different service dog options out there as far as what these service dogs are doing, but a majority of them involve very similar types of early development and training. Seeing eye dogs would be one of the biggest ones, because they have to be uber focused on what they're doing. But the majority of them still provide really important services. And when they start with puppyhood, they go out, they're working, right? They don't get to get attention from everybody or everything. Now,
that physical interaction that gets them excited.
Also extremely well socialized. So
they have to be.
How do they do it? Well, it's just proof that it's not a requirement to be greeted by every single person, every situation in order to be well socialized. It's more about the events and the environments and the places.
How they react to those environments.
Yes. So setting your personal dog up for success is going to be, curbing the puppy petters and allowing those situations to happen, which is going to be a lot of what we're going to show on how to go for a walk in your neighborhood, which we don't have one, so we got to go find a neighborhood. But we're going to show how to go for a walk in the neighborhood, how to interact with those people, and how to help handle your dog through those situations.
So great question. Be looking for that new video very soon. And thank you all for all your questions this week in our YAWA series.
I'm out of coffee.
And he's not getting any more.
And we're out of time. And speaking of coffee, if you saw these mugs, you like these mugs, all of the mugs that we're doing are going to be a limited edition. This will be the only batch of these that is created. So once these are gone, they're gone. If you like them, we have a few left, and then we will have a new model, if you will,
Second edition
coming out very soon.